Good morning, beautiful people. How the heck are you? Welcome to a new week of distance learning. Harper decided that she wanted to start the video out today. She just came right up to me when I was about to start. And so I said, hey, kids haven't seen Harper. Everyone loves Harper. Might as well throw a little Harper action in there. So there she is. What up? Anyway, can't hold her forever, but I love the girl. All right. So, beautiful people. Today we're going to be starting reading. You guys are going to start reading The Glass Menagerie, which is it's an American classic. We finished reading Shakespeare, and Shakespeare's language, some could say, is a little bit difficult. After all, it's been 500 years, and language is something that's alive and it evolves over time. And so things that people said 500 years ago, they don't so much say anymore. Things that people said 10 years ago, people don't say so much anymore, especially things like slang. So language evolves, and it has evolved a lot. But Glass Menagerie was written in 1945, and so it's much closer to our modern way of speaking and far more easier to understand. So we have that to look forward to. I wanted to tell you a little bit about Tennessee Williams. Tennessee Williams is an American playwright who is quite celebrated. He wrote Streetcar Named Desire, Glass Menagerie, many other plays that aren't quite as famous as those two. So he was a prolific playwright. His name, I have a little biography I'm going to go over for you. His name was Thomas Lanier Williams. He was born in Columbus, Mississippi in 1911. His family moved around frequently. Then they moved to St. Louis, a suburb of St. Louis. He didn't get along with his father. His father was a traveling salesman. We're going to see that in the play reflected, in that he is absent. There's an absent father, not just a traveling salesman, but just gone. He's an absent father. His mother, Edwina, was overbearing, somewhat hysterical. But she was always supportive of her son's desire to write. Okay? Williams had a younger brother named Dakin, cool name, and his older sister Rose, however, was one of the most important figures in his life. Williams and others described her as beautiful, sweet, and highly intelligent. But Bella knows she also suffered from schizophrenia, which worsened as she got older. So we'll return to Rose and her schizophrenia in a moment. As far as schooling, Williams graduated from University City High School in Missouri, enrolled at the University of Missouri. He then transferred to several other schools and kind of jumped around before eventually getting his Bachelor of Arts from the University of Iowa. He got the name Tennessee in college. It was a nickname because of his accent. But his name, Thomas Lanier. Anyway, Tennessee stuck. So that's what he kept. All right, so the most devastating moment of his life. It was life-changing, and we'll see how it is reflected in the play. As Rose, his sister, became increasingly unstable mentally, in 1937, his parents authorized a prefrontal lobotomy for Rose, who was growing more paranoid and troubled, apparently. Now, mental health has changed a lot. And people don't get these kind of lobotomies anymore. What it is, if you have a weak stomach, you might want to go forward a bit. The procedure involved inserting an ice pick through the patient's eye socket to sever nerves that join the prefrontal cortex to the rest of the brain. And it was supposed to relieve psychiatric strain. Instead, it completely destroyed Rose's mind. It destroyed Rose mentally. She was never able to care for herself again. This obviously clearly broke Tennessee Williams' heart and caused him to suffer his own mental collapse because of what happened to his sister. So we have a character in the play. There are not many characters in the Glass Menagerie, but one of them is our protagonist's sister. And she has a condition, pleurosis is the name of the condition, wherein she can't care for herself. In much the same way as his sister Rose after the ice pick lobotomy. She couldn't care for herself either. So we see the strain that it's going to have on the protagonist, and it's very realistic. And that Tennessee himself went through the same thing, and so it's reflected in his protagonist in the story. Williams would later say that the difference between himself and Rose was that he had a way to deal with his fragile mental state. He could write. He turned Rose's suffering into a short story and then a play called The Glass Menagerie. Laura, Tom, okay, so Laura is the sister to Tom, our protagonist. Laura, Tom's fragile, sensitive sister in the play, suffers from a personality disorder just as Rose did. Tom is unable to escape from his memories of Laura and his guilt of abandoning her. The Glass Menagerie made Williams famous as a playwright. It premiered in 1944 and received excellent reviews. It won New York Drama Critics Circle Award. In an essay that accompanies the play, Williams notes that he had difficulty dealing with the fame and moved himself to Mexico. Escaped to Mexico for a time to write after the play because it wasn't dealing well with the fame. In the 1960s, however, Tennessee Williams did suffer a mental breakdown. His later works didn't receive the kind of critical praise that things like The Glass Menagerie and A Streetcar Named Desire received, but he continued to write, but they just weren't quite as famous. He ended up dying in New York City in 1983. That's your biography of Tennessee Williams, our playwright. Other background information that you need to know before reading the play. Tennessee Williams called The Glass Menagerie a memory play. So what do you suppose a memory play would be? If you think about our memories, the way that our mind works, it's not in 1080p, and it's not every moment of our life recorded exactly as it happened, right? Memory is subjective. We remember certain things, certain moments, certain feelings that we had from our past. And so this memory play is not entirely realistic. A lot of times the lighting will be used in such a way, and he writes in his stage directions, to use the lighting in such a way to create kind of a ghostly feel about certain characters. So memories, right? Memories are objective. Tom Wingfield is our protagonist. Because he is not an objective director or narrator, the play unfolds in an impressionistic, highly symbolic fashion from Tom's memory. Tom is our protagonist, right? Not our playwright, different people. It's the protagonist, Tom. He has these memories of Laura. So even though Tennessee and Tom have similarities in that they have a sister who is disabled mentally and, well, physically more so with Laura in the play. Different people. All right. So, but it's his memories. It's his memories who are creating this memory play. The play contains characters very clearly drawn from Williams' own life, although the play's purpose is not autobiography. Williams seeks to show how any artist can engage mental and emotional pain through the process of art itself. So he suffered this extreme pain because of his sister, because of his absent father, all these things. And so he works through that pain through his art, through his play here. Okay. As far as the social historical background of the play, Tom is a character in the play who speaks directly to the audience. Just to tell you that right away. The beginning of the play starts out, and he's walking to his apartment, and he starts speaking to the audience. Okay, not just an aside, full on soliloquy, but spoken to the second person, which is us, as the audience. He's a narrator. He's conscious of his own role in a play, and he deliberately sets the action in a very specific time and place. The historic events of the 1930s seem very distant to the Wingfields, and yet they are symbolically linked to the internal changes through which the family goes. So in scene 1, Tom mentions several historical markers that allow us to place the moment of the play in 1937. He mentions labor riots in American cities. He mentions the bombing of Guernica in Spain and the declining economy due to the Great Depression, establishing the time of the play as 1937. It was written in 1944, so at the time it was fairly modern and contemporary, but he sets it at 1937. Okay, the Great Depression is continuing to keep the country's economy stagnant. Labor disputes in big cities hint at the unrest that will soon upset the balance of the whole world and start World War II. So it's kind of this powder keg that's just waiting to explode into this massive world war. As far as the Great Depression, you guys know about the Great Depression. I didn't go into it too much historically, but obviously, well, anyway, my paper has some information on the Great Depression, but, you know, I don't need to get into the Great Depression too much. You guys know, not great. Okay, labor riots in the United States since the late 1800s. there had been an ongoing tension in both Europe and America between large, powerful corporations and groups of workers trying to organize into unions for workers' rights. The unions tried to use the power of numbers to bargain for higher salaries, better working conditions, and better job security. The corporations were trying to protect their own interests, and so this is why labor unions were formed, labor riots. Okay? So those are just some historical markers that Tom talks about in the beginning of the scene to kind of set our setting in 1937. Okay? I think that you guys are going to enjoy this play. It's pretty easy to read. Tom, the narrator, speaks to you, the audience, and there's lots of stage directions. Shakespeare did not use very many stage directions. Usually it'd be like, he dieth, or whatever. You know, the character dies, and that's all we get. Tennessee Williams has 2 pages of prose at the beginning of his play telling how he wants the stage to be set up, certain effects that he wants. There's a device in the play talking about a screen. That there's a screen somewhere in their living room. Most of the whole thing takes place in their apartment, this tiny apartment. But there's a screen that will sometimes flash words. It'll sometimes flash images. And it was Tennessee Williams just utilizing the technology of the day, and so he had a projector where he would be projecting different words and things like that. So when it says that the screen lights up or says certain things in the stage directions, you know what that's talking about. There's basically this TV or a wall that will just have a projection on it from time to time, whether it's a picture of their absent father, a word, a color, whatever he uses to make you feel certain things in the play. Okay. As far as the study guide is extensive. I am going to scan it and put it on. It'll be available for you under 9th Resources. The thing about the study guide is that there are lots of questions, but the way that you should use a study guide is to study. That's all I got. Just kidding. The way you use a study guide is to read it. Make sure that you can explain it in your mind. You don't have to write the whole thing down. If you want to complete this for an assignment, you may. 41 questions. You can turn it in for a daily grade. The day of the test, the Glass Menagerie test, which is going to be 2 weeks from today. It'll be a Monday. It'll be available for 2 days. And it'll be available next Monday. Not next Monday, Monday after. Okay? So 2 weeks to read it. It's a short play. Literally, you could probably read it in 2.5 hours, maybe 3. And that's how long it takes to perform, probably about 2.5 hours. Okay? As you can see, there is a PDF available on my blog of a full text rendition of the play. If you have the paper version, I'm sure that's probably better, but this PDF is there, and there's a link to it on my blog if you weren't able to get the Glass Menagerie, or if Amazon, you know how Amazon is right now, trying to deal with the plague. So I wanted to show you, this is how it starts. This is how the play starts, right? This isn't what we're traditionally looking at as the play usually looks more like this down here. But it starts out with some heavy prose, and so let's read that together, just to get you started. All right. The Wingfield apartment is in the rear of the building, one of those vast hive-like conglomerations of cellular living units that flower as warty growths in overcrowded urban centers of lower middle-class population, and are symptomatic of the impulse of this largest and fundamentally enslaved section of American society to avoid fluidity and differentiation, and to exist and function as one interfused mass of automatism. Woo! That is quite a sentence. So take that as you will, right? So it's just this vast hive-like conglomeration. Basically, this feeling that we're all workers in a hive, that they're in this little square, in this larger square, in a larger square of a city, in a larger square of a country, and basically the lower middle class populations are symptomatic of the impulse And it basically says they're fundamentally enslaved section of American society. This lower middle class, basically he calls them fundamentally enslaved. All right. The apartment faces an alley and is entered by a fire escape, a structure whose name is a touch of accidental poetic truth. For all of these huge buildings are always burning with the slow and implacable fires of human desperation. The fire escape is included in the set, that is, the landing of it and steps descending from it. The scene is memory and is therefore non-realistic. Memory takes a lot of poetic license. It omits some details. Others are exaggerated. According to the emotional value of the articles it touches, for memory is seated predominantly in the heart. The interior is therefore rather dim and poetic. This idea that the play, the scene is a memory play, and so it's not realistic. There's going to be certain elements that the director could use through lighting and different things to make it seem carry almost a dream-like quality of memory. At the rise of the curtain, the audience is faced with the dark, grim rear wall of the Wingfield tenement. This building, which runs parallel to the footlights, is flanked on both sides by dark, narrow alleys which run into murky canyons of tangled clotheslines, garbage cans, and the sinister latticework of neighboring fire escapes. It is up and down these alleys that exterior entrances and exits are made during the play. At the end of Tom's opening commentary, the dark tenement wall slowly reveals, by means of a transparency, the interior of the ground floor Wingfield apartment. He gives some stage directions about how to set up their apartment. He says downstage is the living room, which also serves as a sleeping room for Laura. The sofa is unfolding to make her bed. Upstage, center, and divided by a wide arch or second proscenium with transparent faded portieres or second curtain, is the dining room. In an old-fashioned whatnot in the living room are seen scores of transparent glass animals. Whatnot is basically a weird name for it, like a curio cabinet. So these strange, transparent glass animals. Okay, a menagerie. What is a menagerie? A menagerie is a collection of animals. It's called the Glass Menagerie. So this obviously holds some symbolic importance in the play. We'll see what that is, but it's established right here in the stage directions that there is a collection of transparent glass animals. A blown-up photograph of the father hangs on the wall of the living room, facing the audience to the left of the archway. It is the face of a very handsome young man in a doughboy's First World War cap. He is gallantly smiling, ineluctably smiling, as if to say, I will be smiling forever. Okay? This is the absent fifth character in the play. It's the father. He's referenced, his picture is right there in the living room. He's the center of so many things, yet he is entirely absent. His importance is his absence and the effect that it has had on the rest of his family ever since he left. Okay, so we have that picture of the father. He's the absent fifth character in the play. There's only 4 characters in the play. He's the absent fifth. The audience hears and sees the opening scene in the dining room through both the transparent fourth wall of the building and the transparent portieres of the dining room arch. It is during this revealing scene that the fourth wall slowly ascends out of sight. This transparent exterior wall is not brought down again until the very end of the play during Tom's final speech. The narrator is an undisguised convention of the play. He takes whatever license with dramatic convention is convenient to his purpose. Tom enters dressed as a merchant sailor from alley stage left and strolls across the front of the stage to the fire escape. There he stops and lights a cigarette. He addresses the audience. And then we have Tom's soliloquy as he addresses the audience. All right. This is your guys' parallel novel, so I'm going to leave it to you to continue reading and to read about this Tom fella. All right. You guys have a great day, and I will talk to you soon. Tomorrow we'll have a vocab list, a new vocab list tied to the Glass Menagerie for you. All right. Take care. Have a good one.